Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Randeep, and I'm coming back to you with another episode of Conversations on Conscious Change. Well, today I have a very interesting guest, and my guest today shares how he leads himself and how that impacts every area of his life. He believes that we are not just designed to do one thing. However, we can choose to have a wide range of things that we actually can choose to do that contributes to different areas of life, of business, of volunteer work, of whatever it is that we choose. Life, in his opinion, is not a dress rehearsal, and it is up to us for us to show up and add more to it. A proven builder of people, businesses, and brands, particularly developing markets. A husband, a father of six, a grandfather of three, a marathoner, mountain climber, Olympic track and field coach, a writer, a consultant and a speaker, and a philanthropist. Now, that is a lot of amazing stuff that this gentleman has been able to do. And all of this conspires to make him the best that he can be in his life, rich in experience, rich in friendships and work relationships, and rich in wisdom in transforming change. Now, all of this stuff he has been able to do in a relatively short period of time. And I'm not going to keep you guessing. I'm going to invite the amazing James Michael Lafferty. Welcome to the call, James, and how are you today?
I'm good, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm wonderful now that you're here. And I'm just so excited by the fact that we're going to be talking about something that is not quite heard of, not really spoken about, but many people are actually looking into it. You have been a profound speaker on topics on leadership, on business, and have been awarded several times as a CEO of the Year by multiple magazines and in different countries. But today, however, I would like to get your views on gender equality. What is gender equality and how important is gender parity in these present times, James? What do you think? Where are we with this? What's going
Well,
on?
okay. Do we have gender equality and gender parity? I would say absolutely not. Um, the barriers are, as everyone knows, quite numerous. And
Well,
they're the same barriers that also stop organizations from embracing diversity on a broader scale, not only from gender but from race, religion, and other factors. For me, it starts at home. Unfortunately, to say this but how people behave in their private life is a mirror of how they're going to behave in the workplace and what they truly believe. And I'll give you, a couple of stories to illustrate this that brought it home for me. Um, I have watched a number of senior executives in my life give very wonderful speeches on a stage at how we need to embrace diversity and we need to work with people of different colors and different religions and different nationalities, and everyone claps and cheers. It's great to talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? And the measure of walking the walk is not truly in the workplace, it's at the home. And a number of years ago, my daughter was in high school in Geneva, Switzerland, and she was the captain of the girls basketball team, and the captain of the boys basketball team. They became an item. They started dating, and he happened to be a very tall Nigerian boy, and my daughter was this very short Caucasian American girl. And they became, on the campus of the International School of Geneva, the big couple, the power couple, the two athletes. And obviously, as they were in their last year of high school, it was very noticeable, and they were all the parents knew. And what shocked me is that some of these people that had given these speeches, they came to my office to under the pretense of let's just have a chat and a coffee. And this guy says to me one day, he says, "Hey, by the way, what do you think about Morgan's boyfriend?" And I said, "I think he's a great kid." And he goes, "Yeah, but you know what I mean." And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Come on, he's an African boy." And I said, "So what? He's a good kid." I wasn't really looking at it. He's like, "Oh, come on." And I said, "I'm serious." He said, "This is a nice kid." And I enjoy, we even hang out together and chat, and I enjoy him. And the guy says to me, "Well, if that was my daughter, he wouldn't be stepping foot into my house to date my daughter and be intimate with my daughter and kiss my daughter and all this." And I was just flabbergasted. And it hit me at that moment. There is a whole world of executives and people in the world who play the game and the political game of like, I'm going to embrace diversity, but I'm going to do it from 9 to 5. And when I get home, I'll be damned if I want all this diversity in my house and all that. And it hit me at that moment. You only value diversity when it's welcome in your home. And that's my measure. And that's the measure that I look at. And I say, do they bring it home? And this is the start point. And you have to hire people where they embrace diversity and they embrace supporting women everywhere in their life. Not just, I'll do it in the corporate context, but when I get home, no, my daughters are going to do the dishes and they're going to serve all their brothers in the house. You can't have that. This has to be a 24/7 thing.
Absolutely.
And so I think we are a long ways from it. Things are getting better, but it's a very slow burn. If you look at the statistics coming from various not NGOs on when will we reach gender parity, it's in 100 years. I mean, we'll all be dead. And that's unacceptable that this is taking so long. So I do think we need to put much more emphasis on it, and we need to reward and promote and develop the people that embrace this as a lifestyle. And it's not like I was born in a certain way, but through a series of experiences in my life, you learn how to become open-minded. You learn how to put these things down and how to defeat maybe biases that you had in your own brain. And it comes with time and experience and having a general sense of open-mindedness.
I think more than anything, it's also the place of a lady who happens to be the mother in the home, not to differentiate between a boy child and a girl child. It's very essential because it has been going on, and it has been a normal thing across in India and in different parts of the world also, where girl children are always put on the side and the boy child is always given more attention. And the boy child is actually given the opportunity of going to school and college. And it is happening till now, unfortunately. And I think the starting point, as one of our dear friends actually mentioned in our meeting before, is the starting point is for us to actually inculcate that kind of behavior first within our home fronts, so that we start off really young and actually let the children know that there's no difference between a boy and a girl. I think it's us as parents who actually need to bring that home and in the way that we behave at home. And that thing needs to change. But having said that, there are lots of things that are right now. There are lots of movements that are going on right now to bring this gender parity and equality into the equation in the workforce, in the way that we do business, how women in business are being empowered. But I have another question for you, James, and it would be like, what conversations do you think need to be had in the workplace that will, trigger the the way that we actually start looking at gender equality? What kind of conversations? I think from the conversations, then we can go into other areas, which is what it is you spoke earlier. But many people are not even aware of what gender equality is. It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, this is how things have been going on, and let them carry on. Why should I rock the boat? That kind of thing. So, to start off in the corporate world, what do you reckon would be the best conversations, and how do we go about doing that?
Well, this will probably be a bit provocative for your audience. I I need to start with some general observations
Okay.
of discrimination in general. And this is a discussion that comes up greatly because if you look around the world, things like immigration, things like transgender, things like people of color, these are major topics in the world today, and they're all diversity based. Now, I'm white.
Mm.
And, I'm not going to be the first to say, does white privilege exist in the world? Absolutely, positively, yes. And any white person who denies that it's either their head is in the sand or they don't want to deal with the reality. There is absolute white privilege. I'm married to a Chinese woman. I go to a pharmacy in the Philippines, and if I want any drug I want, they'll give it to me because I'm white. My wife goes and asks for the same penicillin, and they say, "Where's the prescription?" I have seen it. It's black and white. There's white privilege, in things. Now, why being a white person and being in white discussions and white people, I have come to certain general conclusions on things. The first conclusion is, for me, the foundation of gender discrimination or racial discrimination in general comes out of fear. And the foundation is fear and lack of confidence. And so what people want to do, and I've seen this in the workplace on gender diversity, is people will rail against the woman or try to get the woman out of the company. When I promoted the first woman in Coca-Cola history in Nigeria to plant manager, you should have seen the people go after her. And I realized in talking to the men, it was all fear. Like, a woman could beat us. And when I've been in discussions on immigration in the US, and I say, why are you so stressed about more Mexicans wanting to immigrate to the US? I mean, we all were immigrants once. My grandparents immigrated to the US. I mean, how can you be against immigration if you're anything other than a Native American? Because the whole country was built on immigration. And the answer, when you really probe the answer is fear. Like, they might be better than me, or they might take my job, or they might do this. And the underlying thing of that is a lack of personal accountability, a lack of confidence, and a lack of belief in oneself. And my advice to people consistently on this is, don't get bitter, get better. Racist people and gender discriminatory people are all bitter. They're bitter about it. They're saying, I didn't get the job because of a woman, or I didn't get the job because of an immigrant, or I'm not making the money I want because of the immigrant. Look at these people in like my home country complaining about immigration left and right. That is not the solution to the issue. The solution for that is they didn't work hard enough. They didn't get an education. They think that you should get a great lifestyle for a very low cost, and they don't understand work hard. And so my advice to all these people has always been, don't get bitter, get better. And I've had a discussion in my very company here around women and say, you're afraid she's going to take your job. I get it. But you know what? She's not going anywhere. So here's the deal. If you want to keep going, get better. Focus on yourself, but trying to suppress your competition is the equivalent of two runners in the Olympics. And the one runner says, the way I'm going to win is I'm going to shoot the other runner in the leg. And that's how I'm going to get rid of my competition. And, a true champion doesn't work like that. A true champion says, the other runner is good and I respect them and they get a free shot at it, but I'm going to out-train them. I'm going to outwork them. I'm going to outbeat them, and I'm going to out-mental them, and I'm going to be tougher than them. But I'm not going to try to sabotage their career, sabotage their reputation so that I can get the advancement. It's the most despicable form. And that's why racism and gender discrimination at its core is so disgusting, is that it's rooted in fear. unfairness to get what you want, as opposed to you earning it by being superior. And that's why, when you do see these pioneers in the world, like the first women to make certain levels and that, and the first African Americans to get promoted, and the first these people are so exceptional. It's just mind-blowing how exceptional they are, because they had to be so much better than everyone else to even get a position of that, of that authority. And, my whole leadership team, the women that I have on my leadership team today, my management board, are the first management board women in the history of this company.
Yes.
And
Now, I want to talk to you about that. So
yeah.
my question is, how many organizations across the world right now are even initiating gender equality and bringing in women and men to actually work side by side and have a 50-50 gender representation within their organizations at the time?
Wow. If you put all of that together, the answer is less than 1%. It's zero, because there's so many points to your very good question, Jennifer. One is 50-50, which is hard. I'm 50-50 in some areas. I'm even in marketing, I'm now at 70-30 women to men. And the men are actually saying that, there's no gender diversity in marketing. And in my top management, I'm at, 35 to 40% women, but I'm not 50-50. And then there are pockets like the factories, which is awful, that so 50-50. Then you have to get into really embracing it. That's where, I have a bit of a smirk on my face, because there are companies that's just all they do is talk about it. And they hold a seminar on, women's empowerment, and they go to a seminar and they check the box, but they don't change anything when they come back.
Which is exactly what it is.
There's all these seminars all the time on women's empowerment everywhere. And I keep saying, okay, but let's get some action done. Let's get people to commit to numbers. Let's put plans in place. Let's do training to senior executives on the importance of this and the value. Let's do stuff, not just get everybody in a room and we have tea and donuts.
The cows come home. Exactly.
Talk about.
Yeah.
So
I think I agree with you there 100%, quite honestly. Now, I just want to turn the things around. When you talk about fear and lack of confidence, would it also be that women are experiencing that also where men are concerned? And the question over here is, are we going to train those women to come up to par? That's number one. And number two, this could be both. It's not even gender specific. Fear and lack of confidence is not gender specific. Like I mentioned earlier, talent for me is not gender specific. It is about the individual choosing to be more, do more, and have more of himself or herself. So for me, it is a bit difficult to grasp as to why would people even want to compete with one another from a gender perspective when they can choose to enhance themselves individually. What's stopping them from doing that, in your opinion, James? What exactly is that? Because it's a very easy thing to blame everybody else, the company, the manager, the other person. But what about you? You point a finger, three pointing back at you. What can we do to change this? I believe training for you is a solution. But what else?
I'll be very honest with you. I have confronted many, many times in my life what I considered to be that kind of gender discrimination or even racism in a different part. And what I've literally do is you confront the fear, and it makes people have to face up to stuff. Because if you say, look, I understand. So let's say someone is discriminating against a woman in the workplace. Say, look, I understand the basis of this, which is you're afraid that she's better than you. I get it. Now they'll kind of deny, say, but let's stop. Let's deal with the reality. You're afraid. Now, a real man, a real person of substance would work on themselves.
Exactly.
Now, what you can do is choose to keep dragging other people down. And that's your whole mission. And you, again, you look at some of these movements, like some of the movements in the United States, in my home country, the entire movement is just filled with negative and hatred and vitriol. All they do is tear everybody down. Blame everyone else for the problems. Blame the liberals, blame people of color, blame Black Lives Matter, blame immigrants, blame it's transsexuals, it's bisexuals, it's the LGBTQ movement. That whole movement, if you look at the content, it's nothing but hatred.
Exactly.
And they hate everyone. They literally hate everyone. And we hate big companies, we hate small companies, we hate Disney, we hate, how can you hate Mickey Mouse? They hate everybody and everything. And what you have to do is confront and say, it's really sad. It's really sad. You are a talented person, you have amazing potential, but as long as you do not accept accountability for your place in life, you're going to be in a huge problem. I wrote a column a year ago on LinkedIn. Oh my God. So the title of the article was, "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." Now, and I explained that if you, and I said, I know a guy in prison right now. I know someone very well who's in prison, someone that was close to me. That person made all kinds of choices in their life, and they ended up in prison. There's nobody to blame. They made the choice. It's an accumulation of choices. Now, if someone, I'm in this job, and I've had people jealous of me, and I say, you know what? When you stayed home and took no risks, I moved all over the world, learned languages, and I had attained this position through tons of risk taking and tons of blood, sweat, and tears to get there. You didn't do that. So I'm sorry that you're pissed off that I have a higher job than you do, but you didn't go and move your family all over the world, and you didn't learn anything language-wise. You took no risks. I mean, you get where you are at in your life, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Now, I had a ton of people write on the comments on that and say, wow, you're right on. And, it makes so much sense. And this makes sense to me. And thank you. And then there was a 25% that literally said, screw you. And you are so way off. And I actually had a few of them private message me. And you know what? They were all pissed off at the world where they were at in their life. And it was just too painful, Jennifer, to look in the mirror and say, this is on me. I messed this up. And as long as they can't do that, and they have to go and find a scapegoat, be it a woman or be it another race or another, a person of difference than them, as long as they can do that, at least they have a little bit of comfort that it's not all on me, because that's so, for some people that are especially weak people, that's overwhelming. Yes, it's overwhelming to take all that accountability. And so they say, my ego can't handle it. I need to find the thing. That's the foundation of all this. And so the question I would ask is, why do you think you feel that way? And where do you think you've gone wrong to have led you to this path of where dragging other people down is your strategy for self-promotion?
Yeah. Because it doesn't really make any sense. And you're 100% correct when you say that. So my question over here is, what can individuals do? What can organizations do to help empower people to get out of their own way of being, threatened or in fear? First and foremost, I think, as you mentioned earlier, it's about recognizing that you are in fear and that you are, excuse my French, but pissed off at yourself, quite honestly. And what exactly is it that you would like to shift and change? Because we can change ourselves, but we can't force anyone else to change. You can take the horse to the water, can't make them drink. But what is it that we can actually shift and change that will encourage people to say, oh my God, what is going on? I could look at this differently. What can I do? What can I be?
I,
How can I
that's
grow?
that's why I think it's a great question. That's why I think leaders have to force the change. You
Exactly.
can't like allow it to happen naturally and all this stuff. You know, I'll give you a couple different examples and some data. There's been a lot of data done on, where there's hatred between two ethnic groups,
Mm.
and the data is crystal clear. When you take kids from the two groups and you put them together and they actually interact and have fun together, all the hatred disappears. And
Exactly.
when I was running in Procter and Gamble, what was called the Near East Division, which included Israel together with Palestine, all that. I took many Israelis who they've never met a Palestinian, they didn't know anybody in Palestine, and they viewed them all as dangerous to their existence. And they were very nervous and scared, and they had all kinds of preconceived notions. I took multiple Israelis across the Green Line into the West Bank and into Gaza, had lunch with teams and business colleagues and showed them the business and met people. And I remember multiple times driving out at the end of the day and crossing the Green Line, going back into Israel proper. And the Israeli in the car with me started crying and said, "What have we done? These people are just people. They're just wonderful people. They just want a life." And all of this fear and the hatred had like drained out of their body. But if you've never met the other side, so to speak, you're with preconceived notions. Now, what I found works like in gender diversity is when I came into the company here, we had no women in senior leadership. Now, I can do the slow burn, we're going to try and all that. I didn't do that. We had a group of men who were not performing. They were fired. They were fired nicely, but they were fired. At the same time, I went to the headhunters and I said, okay, we're going to fill these roles. And since we're in Dubai, which is loaded with talent, I only want to see female CVs. Don't even show me a man. And I'm going to take advantage of it. And now a man can say to me, and if you have said that's gender reverse discrimination, I said, no, it's not. But if you're going to make a change, you got to take advantage of these openings and fill them. And one by one, I filled them with women. And overnight, we went from 0 to 25% women in management overnight, within 3 months, 4 months. Now, what then happened is the men who we had never had a woman leader in the history of the company, the men now have to work with these people. And you know what they found out? I had multiple men come to me. I have to admit, you were right. She's really good and she's really bringing value, and you were right to do this. And this was a big thing for them to admit.
Yes.
And over time, all that distrust or belief that women weren't good enough, it like drained out of their veins and their arteries. And then they got into it. But what you have to do is force this stuff.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say, but you have to force it. And
I get it. Because I think as a leader, and a leader who really is looking for making a change, making a shift, and when we have the authority to do that, we have to be the example to walk, not only talk, but walk the frigging talk, and actually be the change in action, which is what it is that we are all about here. But I think, having said what you've said, I think it is about also educating people as to how it is they need to show up and how to wake up. Like I did a call the other day, is to wake up, shake up, and frigging show up. There's no point in you sitting on your laurels and then criticizing and bitching about things that are not happening the way that you want it to happen, and then sabotaging everyone else in the bargain just because you want to maintain your status quo. It's not
that's
the
right.
place that you grow. Anyway, James, um, one of the things that I like to ask you, what would be a couple of things that you would like to give as advice to people who are listening to us from the corporate world or from any part of the world, be it sports, be it the corporate world, be it at home? What are a couple of things that you can share that would be the golden nuggets for people to even start perceiving a different way of showing up where gender equality is concerned? What would be some of those things?
Well, the biggest thing is every business in the world today has customers, and to win those customers, you have to understand them and meet their needs.
Mhm.
And there is not a business that I know of, or a company that I know of that does not
Have
serve
women.
women at some significant capacity. Now, that number can vary. And if you take, for an example, my business, we know that 70% of the purchase decisions in my categories are made by women. Now, armed with that statistic, you have to be out of your mind as a business leader to not have women running the business. I mean, you can't sell women, understand women, market to women, mine the insights of women without having women on your business. And so, telling a bunch of men you're going to market to women and you have to figure it all out, and they don't have any insights around being a woman or what it feels like to be a mother or what it feels like to make these decisions in a store is ridiculous. And so, my start point to any leader is that if women play a significant role in your customer base, it's not, forget about being politically correct and having women in the workplace. Let's put the political correctness aside.
Mm.
You're not even smart if you don't have a legitimate effort to bring women into the business. It's now about even your brains and your ability to lead the company. How can you possibly, that's like taking a whole group of people from one country and sending them into another country in a language they don't speak and saying, you have to run the business here. The first thing you say is, I need some locals. I need people that understand the business, understand the culture.
Exactly.
And so if women are a big part of your business, then you should have women in significant, prominent roles in the company, helping guide the decision-making that will help you win with those women customers. So that, for me is the most biggest thing. That's the business. Some people think that I do things like gender diversity efforts or women's empowerment because it's like politically, it's woke.
Mm.
Okay, you know what? If it's woke, I'm proudly woke. But I do it because I think it'll help me win.
Exactly.
And we ended up at 70, we're at 70% of the marketing management in this company is female. And the business is at all-time record highs.
Yes.
And I think that's part of it. And why did it end up at 70? Because disproportionately, with 70% of women making the purchase decision, I want more women than men in that department. Now, that can be offset by more men in another department. And, it's not like everything becomes clean and 50-50 everywhere. You get skews one way or the other.
Exactly.
But that's the biggest nugget I can think of, which is there's a business reason to do this. It's not just about political correctness and being woke.
Which is really cool. And what other advice would you like to leave them with as to inculcating this kind of equality, looking at people for who they are, not what gender they have?
I think you're spot on, and for me, it's hire people, not labels. And the story I tell that really shakes people up is about the first transgender employee I ever had to deal with. So I was in the Philippines, and I had a male sales rep who was average. Average, he could have quit. We wouldn't have thought anything. He was doing good enough to stay, but he wasn't never going to get promoted. And he comes to me one day and says, can I have a private one-on-one? I said, of course. And he comes to me and he sits down. He says, I just wanted to check if you're okay. I am not happy as a person. And I don't believe that I'm a man. I believe that inside I'm a woman, and I would like to enact the changes physically that will change me from being a man to a woman. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? It's completely your life. I don't really care. Now, you might do a surgery that I wouldn't do, but I support your right to do it. And it has no impact on your job. And it has no impact on our support of you. And you are free to make that choice. And this company stands 100% behind you. I stand behind you. Go for it. Now, again, it's not a choice I would make, but you're free to make it. And the next day, he started the hormone injections and changed his clothing and changed the name. And we started referring to him as a her. And I had all kinds of things that I had never dealt with before. Like she started going to the women's restroom in a building that had other tenants, and the other tenants came to me. And so I built a third toilet, a transgender toilet, just for her. Now, as the transition went on, she became happier and happier in her life. And she built a whole new set of friends, and she, was in a relationship. And with the happiness, she became my #1 sales rep in the whole country. And the learning was huge for me, which was happy people win.
Exactly.
Marketplace.
Exactly.
And so, and everybody protected her. And what happened, obviously, is what happened in the other situation we were talking. Everybody had their first experience with a transgender and said, this is still a wonderful human being that we love dearly.
Exactly.
Everyone became protective. All the barriers went down, and she was a superstar. And in fact, the men on her sales team were so protective of her in maybe dangerous parts of town, or where she had to call on customers that were a bit dodgy. They were very protective. And I changed a lot of my thinking on stuff around go for happiness.
Exactly.
And make people happy. And then when they're happy, they kick butt in the job. And when they kick butt in the job, you win. And so, all
it's a
this
win-win
stuff,
for all. Exactly.
I keep telling people that get all hung up in this stuff. If they want to change gender, why do you care? It's their life. Let them do it. If they're female versus male, it's great. Hire the person who's happy and doing well. Stop getting hung up on anatomy. Why are you so hung up on the anatomy? Just let it go. It's not your anatomy. And I have these discussions all the time. I've had people come to me in my past. They say, this person I think is having an affair with someone. I always say, why do you care what they do in their private life? We're not the marriage police here. Just let them do their thing, and we stay out of it. And what they do at night is their business. Exactly. And stay out of it and let it go. And that's, again, these movements you see in various places in the world where everyone's judging everyone based on their private decisions. Stay out of it.
Out of it. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is no other place than a brilliant place to actually say thank you so much for actually bringing it out in the open, because there are very few people who like to talk about these things and bring it out in the open. And what I've got to take away today from your conversation is like, if anyone is having any situation about gender and bias and all of this stuff, first address it with yourself, because there's a fear and there's a lack of confidence that you carry within you. Don't get bitter. Choose to get better, which is awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that. And in business, every business has customers who are women. So if you're looking at forcing men to do a woman's job, think again as a leader. Use your brains. At the end of the day, you want to have women taking care of the women products, because who spends the money in the household? A woman. So let's actually have women who are going to be making decisions on the purchasing. 70% of women in marketing, that's incredible. Awesome for that. Congratulations. But it's more about, can we not judge? I think the largest takeaway has been, can we not judge anyone or anything? And instead of doing that, in my opinion, when you're pointing at somebody else, when 3 are pointing back at you, look at that, because that makes the difference and change. And all I can say, James, thank you for this enlightening conversation. It's been an eye-opener. I enjoyed it, and I'm quite sure that my audience is going to enjoy it too. And I'm going to have you back, because I love to have conversation with you, because it's like straight out in the open and no faffing around, which is what I love. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was James Michael Lafferty, an award-winning brilliant individual. And if you haven't yet gotten to know him, which I don't think is possible because he's all over LinkedIn, and he's also one of the most important people that I have as my denim partner for G100 Oneness and Wisdom. And he brings to us his amazing wisdom. And we are here to help everyone shift and change the way that they look at life. So, James, having said that, thank you very much for your time and your insights. And I will invite you again, and we shall have some more interesting conversations going forward.
I'm
Have
looking
a great
forward. Thank you.
evening.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much for your time.